winery thought I was insane for making all matte red bottle, and they told me they would only give me 300 bottles, and I was like, fine, I'll take 300, and I literally sold every single one out the trunk.
Chris Lyons, a visionary leader at Andreessen Horowitz, where he serves as a general partner and leads the Cultural Leadership Fund. From working with Jay-Z to investing in some of the most disruptive startups, he's at the intersection of tech, culture, and capital.
How'd you get that ability to do that?
I would say for me, I saw the world from a connection point of culture and innovation, where I could understand the value that Silicon Valley has to offer and how they can create big companies and how they can, this is where the gold mine of where the world's smartest people are all coming together. And then the third piece is like,
The way you stood out is just like, you just were yourself at all.
I think everybody stands out by being themselves. We call it idea maze, which is basically like, my thesis in life is always very much focused on how going after industries where you're the 0.1%. When you view the world from a series of other people's ideas and other people's inventions, you really just have two choices, which is I can live in someone else's dream, or I can actually go out and create my own.
Let's talk about what you brought, why you brought it, what it means to you and your legacy.
Yeah, well, I'll start off.
My guy, Chris.
What up, dog?
Appreciate you coming, man.
What's cracking?
It's a pleasure to have you.
Always.
Long time friend of mine.
Day zero,
exactly.
Day zero.
So I see you already ready with the Lead with Legacy gift.
Yeah.
Let's just jump right into that. Let's talk about what you brought, why you brought it, what it means to you and your legacy.
Yeah, well, I'll start off legacy is a big thing, right? And I think that, I'm passionate about a lot of different things, whether it's technology, invest in, music, wine and spirits, collectibles, art, you name it. But I think one of the big legacies, and just going right into it, is when you think about wine and spirits, and it's funny, the backstory behind why I got into wine. I've always enjoyed just understanding different varietals, understanding different grapes. My thesis in life is always very much focused on how going after industries where you're the 0.1%, because just by default, you will have the opportunity to see things differently, right? And from everybody else, but then still taking the quality, understanding the quality and what makes something work. So, what are the best wines in the world? Why? What are the best?
So 0.1% in like the way you think?
Well, no, just for example, I could give you a handful of black vintners that are really doing incredible work. And when I started the wine, there was even less than that. And so, and all of them were super good friends. Shout out to Ingrid, shout out to McBride sisters. Shout out to Lafette Wine in the building. Got all so many people that are just really focusing on, taking our culture and bringing it together. But when I first started working at getting interested into the space, there was not a lot of people that were, that look like us. But to me, that will be something that it goes across technology, that goes across venture capital, that goes across you name it. But that's always been one of my big theses, is that where that means that there's opportunity, and that's a way for you to crack a code and go into things that don't necessarily to think differently about an industry, think differently about a vertical. So I've always been super passionate about wine.
Let's see it.
Yeah, so this is a sparkling red Lambrusco from Italy, Emilia Romagna. It's our fourth vintage that we've done.
And you brought it chilled.
Yeah, it's always drink it chilled. Lions.wine. That's the website if you ever want to cop some. I have to give you a fueled lit by legacy promo code in order to help make it rock. But yeah, it's like, how do you do things your way and also keep things, still focused on quality? And for me, I wanted to find a grape that was undiscovered and that people didn't necessarily know about, but still had good history and lineage. And Lambrusco was actually the number one imported grape in the 70s and 80s.
And you did your homework, because you're always traveling.
I love it. And I didn't see that there was no real modern day sparkling red. you think about champagne, think about prosecco, you think about sparkling rosé. Everyone knows those categories, but there's one above all of them that actually has been proven to be the most successful and the high number one imported wine at the time. It actually got so popular that Italy couldn't even keep up with the demand, and the quality ended up going down. And then, at the same time, California wines really started to take off, and people just kind of forgot about the grapes, the category. But, for me, I always like going after things that, have history, but don't necessarily have something that's there yet. And then being able to kind of tell a different story and do something around it. And so, for me, like that was this opportunity to learn and get and go down the industry of learning how to make wine and learning how to do the distribution, learning how to do the bottle and the packaging, and even just like I remember when I talked to the vineyard and I was like, I want a all red bottle. They didn't know what it meant. So I sent them a picture of a matte red Range Rover, and they looked at me like I was insane. And I'm like, no, this is exactly what I want. Yeah, because for me, it's like all wine looks the same. You can't tell a difference, between any type of bottle. But and also when you think about brand and legacy, and when you talk about tequila, you don't say I want a tequila. You say a brand. Talk about from cognac that you say a brand. We talk about vodka, you talk about any type of spirit. It's not just, hey, I want that, I want a brand. And so, but when it comes to the wine industry, a lot of times when you go out to a restaurant, you're just like, hey, I want a red, I want a white, I want a sparkling, but you never say the brand on top of it. So I wanted to build something to where it wasn't even, if I don't even care, I don't even have a label, because the bottle is supposed to be the label, to where even if you don't even know what the bottle, what you were drinking, you can remember that it was a matte red or it was an all red bottle, and that's what I was drinking. And I found that
that's crazy. I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is like super reflective of like everything you do in so many ways. Yeah, like the point of the 0.01%, and you showing up and just finding your niche in your pocket, and seeing that as a opportunity. Yeah, and then 100%. Even like some things you do, some things that you're a part of that turn out to be huge. Like you're not in the video dancing, you know what I'm saying? And that's reflective of not having a label, but this is still a profound product. Right?
And then you want to do it differently, but you still want to, at the end of the day, the most important thing is the actual product itself, and which is the grapes, and making sure that they're first in class, making sure that they can compete against any other brand that's on the shelf, or when someone's enjoying it, that they can have it however they like. You don't have to just drink it straight. You can put it on the rocks. You can put it in a cocktail. You can do all different types of things. And so the versatility. But the real reason is that why I start off with Lambrusco is because it's a very fun, easy going drink. And I think a lot of times, we've gone out to eat a million times, and when people go out to eat and they see this wine list, they say it's oftentimes overwhelming. How do I know if I should get a French red versus an Italian white versus a Cab from California versus a Pinot from Oregon? Like, where is this coming from? How do I read a wine menu? And so it gets overwhelming. And so I wanted to create a brand that, made it super simple, where if you see our name, that's quality. And, but the bigger reason is that I do believe that wine is an extremely special thing. And I think that we've all had that moment where we've tried that bottle that we can't believe it cost that much, or you didn't, like, it's a super special occasion. And when you have it, you're like, wow, there's no way in the world I can go, drink that barefoot that's in the fridge, or drink or drink whatever. And no offense to barefoot drinkers, but whatever, right? And so it elevates your palate. And I think that, what we're doing as a culture with all the vintners that are making great wines now, and picking very specific categories all around the world, and to really kind of exercise that is to elevate the palate of our culture and of the next generation of wine drinkers. And that's super important to me, and that was my bigger mission. So starting off with Lambrusco, but obviously thinking about it from a larger perspective. And I think the last thing is just being able to say that we made a product that was in a region that when we go shopping, right? With the fact that it says made in Italy, made in this, like adds a different prestige. And I could have went in our backyard and made something right in Napa, but I felt like adding that extra feel and doing the extra work, you have to do the hard thing first. And it was extremely hard to go and, produce a wine in a different continent, in a different part of the world that, while I'm in San Francisco at the time, making that. But then ultimately to be able to get past it and say, now I can make a wine that's in Italy, that is a grape that they love, that has very strong heritage, that now we can now bring back for people to enjoy. And then hopefully that's just the start of introducing a lot more varietals down the way. But first and foremost, we want to make sure we get this popping.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's nothing more fun than popping the bottle. We got to celebrate. We got champagne. We got to celebrate. Like it's supposed to be, like you said, for specific moments, occasions, the whole thing.
So, and you have a bunch of moments that. So let's talk about. Let's walk people through your legacy. Let's talk about the kid in Atlanta, working at restaurants, working. Right, and then working with JD, like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, life has been, it's been a journey. It's been one that continues to keep going. It's one that has ups and downs, and I mean, you every day you have the opportunity to, rewrite your legacy. And for me, it's been something I've been doing since I was a young age. I always have been passionate about, I like to call it like culture and innovation. So, from being the first kid in my school to have like a colored flip phone to like, I'm dating myself, to like having a ringtone to like flex. Having an MP3 player to having the iPod to having the Sidekick. Like I remember, I got my license and I think 3 days after having my license, I was driving down the highway on 85 going to go intern at this studio in Atlanta called the Artist Factory, and just getting my hands deep and dirty into just learning about everything that I can, whether it was music, whether it was sports, whether it was entrepreneurship, and kind of putting it all into one to then try and feel like, okay, well, this is really who I want my DNA to be and what I want to do. And I do believe that I still hold on to all the things that I have been passionate about as a kid to this day, but then now kind of taking it and merging it with where I feel the future is going. And I think everything is from a lens of creativity, and everything is from a lens of when I was in the biggest thing I love about music, and I started off my career as a music producer and then became an engineer, and that's when I worked with JD at Southside Studios.
How'd that opportunity come about?
I went to the school called Full Sail, and then that it's like the quote unquote Harvard for engineering schools, and they through the job applicants presented an opportunity, and I was always such a huge fan of JD, especially as a producer. And a songwriter, and I also loved how he always was very early in terms of technology too. He's very first, like one of the first people to start doing like vlogging, or he made his website Global 14, and like always would just dabble within all the fun new tools. And full circle moment now, like we're tight, and we're talking about like the future of AI and music, and like he's hung out at the back of Ben's house for barbecues, and just like now developed a personal friendship with him. But he's done it incredibly well, and but just like that all came from just constantly just having my head down and just going through the process, and I think that's how it always is. But you have to always keep in that energy zone of like what we're gonna really accomplish, and only always trying to shoot for the best. Only trying to shoot for the thing that can create that next opportunity and can put you in the right circle and give you that ability to see what's possible. And I think he actually was one of the first people to allowed me to see what it was like doing things at the highest quality level, going to his studio, seeing how he made music. One of my favorite stories is like how he made Usher's Let It Burn. Like, I think he was in the studio and Usher was in the studio, and he's a big Madden guy and he's playing Madden, and Usher's super pissed that he's not going out to like being in the studio making the records. And what I learned from that is that even though he thought that he was playing video games, JD was really thinking about the song the whole time, but doing it from like a subconscious level, but not necessarily just sitting down saying like, I need to write. Sometimes when you take your mind off of something and like channel your energy elsewhere, you give it the space for the thing to come in. And I think that that's what's made him, the songwriter of the decade, such an incredible producer, is because he knows how to not force things. And after the game was done, he was like, I got it. And then went out and wrote Let It Burn, and then was just one of a super memorable song from Usher. But it's all about understanding your creative process, and then knowing how to. It's like basketball, like knowing how to get to your spot. So like then it just becomes muscle memory, and you forget about everything else. And I think that in business and in life, there's so many things that you can do that are very similar to that, but you have to get yourself into those reps and those rhythms to know how to do it consistently and do it over and over again. And also, think of new things along the way, because every day you're getting new information that's piled in, you're getting new products that are coming your way. And it's important to just always be grateful when that idea comes, because to me, I think that's the biggest gift, because, our entire life is a series of thoughts. This table, somebody designed this table. You designed this podcast, this camera. Someone said, hey, we need a camera like this. Like, or when you view the world from a series of other people's ideas and other people's inventions, you really just have two choices, which is I can live in someone else's dream, or I can actually go out and create my own. And if you're passionate enough about something, and if you care about it enough, then you're willing to do the work and really study the craft and understand it, then I think that anything's possible. And I think that that's the beauty of creation. And I think technology is the exact same way. Like, you have one person that can sit in front of a computer, type up some code, and create $1 billion business without leaving his chair. That's modern day alchemy, turning code into gold. And I think that we're at a time right now with so much happening in crypto, so much happening in the future of AI, these tools that are being made, that we're now getting put.
Well, let's rewind, because you sit at the middle of that right now. I know you're seeing a bunch of opportunities, and I want to get to that, but I don't want to pass up on the path of your journey.
Okay.
Because people hear this genius and all these, but I don't want to skip steps, right? Because you stood out once, right? Like, you were in a restaurant, you stood out to JD, you found an opportunity there as an engineer. I know you had a startup, and then you stood out to, was it Ben Horowitz, or was that the first person? How did that happen?
For sure. I mean, well, actually,
and go through the story.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got accepted to an incubator from Angela Benton. She had an incubation program called New Me that got me out into Silicon Valley, and that's where I ended up. And I always give credit to her, because she saw the potential, even though it was a crazy startup idea, which I still think could work to this day. And maybe if I get some free time, I'll see if I can vibe code it up. But yeah, I mean, that, Ben, we got a chance to develop a relationship, and the long story short is that there was an opportunity that came up, and I thought it was an amazing way. I always loved investing.
So you guys built a relationship while you were in that incubator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just genuine, not asking for anything. Just he's still to this day one of the most important people for me to learn from, and to see what he's done, not only just from the firm, but personally and professionally, and how he carries himself. I always will give him 1,000 levels of respect, both him and Felicia and the entire and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with some of the most amazing people every day, smartest people in the world, and which is like drinking from a faucet hose, but it's the best type of water you could have because every day everyone's pushing each other and learning about what envisioning what the world looks like tomorrow, and then being able to then make those bets to then hopefully direct that company into a place that now it lands and we can say, hey, well, we saw it first before anybody else. And being able to think about the future from that standpoint is extremely important.
But how'd you get that ability to do that?
How'd you
stand out?
Oh, I think that like everyone has to have a superpower, and and everyone has their own individual lane that they can do in order to make something happen. And I would say for me, like I wasn't trying to act like I was going to be the best venture capitalist that came from Stanford, HBS Business School or whatever. Like that wasn't my lane. But I saw the world differently. I saw the world from a connection point of culture and innovation where I could understand the value that Silicon Valley has to offer and how they can create big companies and how this is where the gold mine of where the world's smartest people are all coming together to sit in a coffee shop and generate an idea that could be the next, Facebook or Airbnb. But at the same time, I always stay connected to who I am and, where I come from and my friends back home in Georgia and my family, and thinking about, well, okay, this company might seem cool right now, but like, does it also connect with where I'm from? And then also, what do people from my world also need or want that would be interesting enough to then, identify where these companies are where they're going to build the next big thing, and being able to identify the two. And then the third piece is like, from a cultural perspective and from a creative perspective, like how can we amplify these companies and what they're doing, and not only just from a go-to-market scale perspective, but even more so from a equity component as well too. And,
so sorry for stopping you. If I'm understanding, the way you've stood out is just like you just were yourself at all.
I think everybody stands out by being themselves.
Right.
Yeah. If you try to be somebody else, then you're literally falling into somebody else's shoes. And I think that we have to really do the work of understanding who we are and what we have. We call it, like your idea maze, which is basically like the idea maze is how has each one of these journeys along your life gotten you to a point to where now you're here and you can take your understanding from each core moment or experience and put it into this thing that now makes you uniquely qualified to know more about this than anybody else. And oftentimes it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. So you don't know what this experience that you're going through right now really means to get you to that next level. And then now that you're thankful that you went from here to here, and then there's another piece that goes from here to here. And if you just disregard all the old stuff, then now that puts you in a point to where you're starting from scratch. But if you were thankful to go from here to here, then that means that was value. And same thing from here to here, that's value. And when you bring all of it together, then it's impossible to have a story that aligns equally to somebody else, which means that you can see the world from a different place. And by having that lens, then it's up to you in terms of you trying to figure out, well, how do I show up in this room? How do I show up when have a seat at the table? How do I show up when it comes to having an idea? What does it mean when I'm giving input? What are people saying about me when I'm not in the room? When are people calling on me for support or in need of something? And what does that mean about who I am? And I think that those things are things that that have came naturally through your professional and personal career, but as when you start getting to the big leagues in terms of like, okay, well, no one really gives a shit what you've done. You have to design your life in order to actually amplify all those things and put it in one package. And, you know, I think the wine is just like one example of that. It's like, that's all of me understanding software development and knowing how to do small iterations, me understanding the world of art and fashion and like listening to Virgil's YouTube videos at 2:00 in the morning to understand architecture and design, and knowing that, watching like talks from Peter Thiel talking about competition is for losers and why you like going outside the box is way better than staying inside. And so, and it just shows up as a wine bottle, but to me, it's a source of all of my journey and what I've learned, and then being able to then take that and then put it into something and say, okay, well, this is what that is. And I think that this is a physical example, but I think the example that's the most important happens when on what you do that people see you as. And Ben says this, that which is most important, and one of the core essences of it's not what you say that's who you are. It's not what you believe. It's not like what you think, it's what you do, and what you do is who you are. And I feel like that's when what people do and when you show up as you, that's when people can actually say, okay, well, I know this is what, Marcus is about. I need him for this. I know this is what Chris is about. This is what I need him for this. Boom. And then being able to design your life, I feel like is a core skill that everyone has. It's just whether or not you want to put the work in order to do that.
Wow. So I talked about it a bit before. You have like your gift is you're humble sometimes. I always tell you how humble.
You told me to start getting out a little bit. So
yeah, I've been telling you that for 7 years, 8, 6.
I know. I'm out. I'm on it. We out here.
But you've had a chance to work with some great people. Some household. Can you go down? You share with the audience.
I don't know.
Do it, man. Because I'll do it if you're not going
to. I've had it. Look, I think that
you had a chance to work with Hov.
Yeah.
You had a chance to work with Serena.
Yeah, one of my favorite people.
KD.
Awesome. Shout out to him and Rich.
Katy Perry.
She's amazing. Genius.
Keep on, because now we've been named 4.
I don't want to go down the list, man.
No. Come on now.
No. I think that,
keep going.
I think that everybody, when I view the people who I'm grateful to collaborate with, and
Mello.
Shout out to Mello. Me and Mello made a great wine together. Oath of Fidelity. Shout out to the Pops. So make sure you check him out. Shout out to Mello. And it's his birthday, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Everybody is, when you look at like talent, and you see them for who they are, one, you realize that they're just amazing people. But even the second thing is that you realize that even though that they are known for one thing, in this world, especially today, being one thing is not enough. And you have to, and when you realize that they're actually just entrepreneurs, and how they see the world is multifaceted, and being able to kind of help and connect the dots, like I'm not going to be the person that's going to tell you what fit to rock, but I will tell you like what investment might be a good idea.
Well, here's the thing though, because I agree. I totally agree with everything you're saying. Mm-hmm. And the approach is right on, which is why you are who you are. But like, just for the person who might be watching, because most of these people that I just named are heavily guarded or have, a bunch of, for lack of a better way to put it, gatekeepers.
Absolutely.
That's hard to penetrate. Like, how do you earn their trust? How have you earned their trust?
I think that I've earned their trust, and and I don't take it lightly. I think that you have to have a spirit of giving, and like I don't ask anybody for anything. I don't want to take pictures just to say I have a picture and post it online. Like, one, I want genuine friendships, and two, I think that, you know, by having a track record of doing things and a track record of not just talking about stuff, but actually putting numbers on the board and getting you into opportunities and being thoughtful and thinking about you on this deal, or, hey, that would sound really good for you. I know that's not what I know this isn't your normal space, but like, let's connect you into this thing. Maybe you should learn about what Bitcoin is before it gets to $1,000. And I know you don't understand it, but like, let's walk you through this and connect you to the team, you know, to sit down and have your whole people understand what AI is going to do for the future of the music industry, what AI will do for the future of fashion and film. And like, let's give first. And I think that like, in that you can't do that with an expectation that they're going to do something for you. I just genuinely really believe, and one of my core things is, you know, access to information. And I do believe that access to information is one of the biggest things that, you know, from our ecosystem and what we need to, you know, really always be thoughtful of is how can we share the information? How can we give out the free game? How can we let people know what's going on in the room? You know, and you even setting up, you know, shops like in conversations like this, give that ability to, you know, that was one of the reasons why I was super excited about Clubhouse. I still am, but like,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about, because I know that was big for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge, but it started off because it was in Silicon Valley, and you know, I mean, look, I'm grateful to be sitting when we're making these investment decisions and should we do this, should we not do this? Let's talk about the state of the world and a room of 12 people. And then you have that same group that then leaves the meeting and then 6 o'clock at night hops on Clubhouse and having that exact same conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, like no more hiding the info, but we weren't on the app. And so, you know, like after talking to the team and, working on just, there was a whole story, it was an HBS article around, you know, how what we did with Clubhouse in terms of really kind of amplifying, getting the culture, getting people on. Like, but the main reason was that we need to be in these rooms.
I was an early user of Clubhouse.
Yeah, I probably recommended you.
Yeah, you definitely did. No, probably.
But it was fun. It was.
I mean, like one of the first.
Yeah, but like I know, but like it was about the It was. I mean, obviously, it went into so many different directions, and it became a thing bigger than itself. But you know, I think that that's also the point, which is that like, and you know, from a cultural perspective, when you give a tool or a platform to the culture, it's gonna do something completely different. The founders never would have anticipated the ways that people would have used Clubhouse, but that's just the power, you know, and shout out to our ability, and specifically within Black culture, to just understand that we can use tools differently, you know, and create in a way that is not expected. But that's why it's so important for us to get there early. And I think that was the first app where instead of waiting till it got to 5 million, you know, 100 million users, like we started impacting the culture when it was at, you know, 5,000 people, maybe less, and helping change and shift and direct the narrative from the company standpoint. I mean, a great example is auto-tune. You know, the people who made auto-tune it was supposed to be for like Mariah Carey type artist, where you just need you to fix one little octave, right? But then imagine like, you know, I remember when I had to learn someone wanted to throw auto-tune on the session, and I'm like, okay, how do I do this? Make sure I get it right. And it's like, turn this knob all the way this way, turn this one all the way over here. I'm like, yo, what? This is not in the instruction manual. This was literally, I had to go on like a subreddit to figure it out. And, you know, but we took that tool, completely flipped it, and literally like from Wayne to, you know, Travis Scott, you know, you name it, that, yeah, Kanye, everybody.
Wait, so you were involved in the early?
No, I mean, I definitely think Atlanta had a huge part when I was working in the studio, having to figure out how to like use auto-tune. But the thing is that the tool that was created and what it's known for is used a lot less than when we took that tool and made it something completely different. And I think that is the art in the science that can't really be described, but
that's your alchemy. That's how you.
Yeah, but I think that's what's important when you can kind of bridge those worlds together and connect the dots in a way to where it doesn't seem like it's a good idea, but it actually is. But you would never think about that. Like, it doesn't sound like a good idea to sit in a stranger's car, but Uber and Lyft completely transformed the transportation business. Or like, it sounds insane to sleep in a stranger's home, but now there's more Airbnbs that are completely revolutionizing the hospitality business, and they're continuing to keep going forward. But you have to have good ideas that sound like bad ideas. It sounds the winery thought I was insane for making an all matte red bottle, and they told me they would only give me 300 bottles, and I was like, fine, I'll take 300, and I literally sold every single one out the trunk. And within a week, I told them they're all gone. They're like, what? And then I said, okay, cool, let's go and do it. And so I think that you just have to have that idea of being okay to go against the grain and trusting yourself and make sure that you have your reasoning down pat, because that's what's going to kind of get you into that space where you can not necessarily be in the same train as everybody else, but now you can actually start to build something new that's never been existed.
So let's talk about your legacy. How do you want it to be told? How do you think it will be told? Everything stops today because you just decide to go live in France. And
thought about it.
That's some shit you would do, but just disappear and play with watches.
I've been low key lately, but I definitely would not be opposed. I know exactly where I would stay out there too. Come find me, and we could have some rosé all day.
Oh man, yeah. How would your legacy be told? Let's think of it. First of all, would it be a documentary? Would it be a biography? Like, how would you biopic?
Biopic.
Which one would it be?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think that it's still too early to tell.
So how do you want it to be told when it's all said and done? Like, what do you want to be said about you? Like, what do you want your grandkids to say? Like, yo, Grandpa Chris did this. And
I think tangible things are really important. I think that being able to.
That's big coming from the president of Web3. So
hey, I mean, you gotta see it. You gotta be able. I think that even like the wine, it's like that's like I was trying to figure out what name forever, and I was thinking of all these clever names of what the wine was going to be called. I remember one day I was in Napa and we went up and down the street, and I just realized every single vineyard was literally someone's name, and I'm like, why am I making this so difficult? And so from having that as a legacy to being able to provide opportunities and people to say positive things about how I've been able to help. I think that as long as I have a giving spirit and as even when things feel tight, and when I'm in my best space, having that giving spirit to think about others and put people first and be selfless, which is something I'm continually working on, and it's even as more and more exposure and being able to navigate different rooms kind of expand. I think that that's one way I want to really be remembered, is that I never hid the information. Like if there was a play, there was a game, I want to make sure people have access and exposure to it, and I think that I've had that opportunity since I've been working in venture for the past 12 years. And I think that, as I continue to expand, how can we do that at scale? And you know, if anything, you know, I want this to be done the right way, and I want people to say that, you know, that I did it my way. And I think that that is all like blueprints that can be easily accessible to somebody else. And, you know, it takes a lot of pressure and it takes a lot of risk. You know, I always say, if you don't know what to do and you're tough, you know, torn between two decisions, just always go with what will make for the better story. I think that that's always super fun. And then, you know, being able to trust your gut. I think that like your gut and your intuition really guide you all the time. And, you know, oftentimes we don't get a chance to really, we take that for granted, or we let the emotions and all these other things kind of get in our way, which kind of can make us make irrational decisions and make us do things that we don't want to do. But in reality, like, that's, you know, our whole life is already kind of, well, not orchestrated, but like you can grab from unlimited resources. Like there's no such thing as limits, you know, and there's no lack. Like, you know, when you have that abundant mentality and that thought process that like you can do anything. And I believe that. I believe that for everyone. You know, if you can do anything, like what's stopping you? Yeah. And, you know, even what you think might be ahead of you is just a potential, you know, just a diversion. And there's all, like one thing Ben also says, he told me this a long time ago, and I always believe is that there's always a move. There's always a move. As long as you're in the game, you know, like there's always a move. You know, COVID might hit. There's a new tip. You got to move the business. You got to do this. This thing might go down. I might run out of production on grapes. There might be a forest fire. And I might need to figure out a new move. And, you know, company's about to shut down. Like, let's look at the opportunities and the options we got right now. Figure out where the next move is. But there's always a move. You just got to, you know, be level-minded enough in order to be able to see it versus in the mix and being in the weeds. So that's what I would say, but that's a long-winded answer.
So I mean, no, it was good. I think your legacy is very, it's out in the open, but it's not, right? Like you've done so many great things, and the people that know and celebrate you. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it.
I got a lot of great friends and a lot of great family, and I think that your circle is extremely important, and I don't take that for granted at all.
Yeah. I have the pleasure of being a part of that circle.
You deep in the game,
yeah,
brother.
Like
you ain't got no choice.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've seen you. It's crazy because I've seen like you already in the game, but I've seen the glow up, and like even while you were glowing up, you've always dreamed. Like you still like that. To me, that's the purest thing about you. Is like no matter where you're at, like even a huge win to you, like you're dreaming right away, which is huge.
Well, I mean, I need people like you, man. Like we're on a podcast now, but I could pull up 5, 6, 7 voice notes of you just check in and just telling me, yo, keep going, you know. And I save all those things, and those are important moments that, you know, because with this game, there's a lot of external fun, you know, moving around, but all the real hard work is done in behind closed doors and in the quiet, in the mud, like really tough when you're trying to wrap your head around what should I do, like long late nights, early mornings, and trying to figure it out. And I think that you got to have that source of motivation and encouragement around you to always keep you going. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also got into watches similar time frame. Yeah. And I know that's going to be something you leave behind.
For sure. That is a very big problem that I
You brought some. Let's show them. Pull them out.
I brought a couple. It's because you told me to.
And bring the ones that connect with your legacy. Pull those out.
Okay. Well, I got a couple. And so the first one, this is actually the first watch I ever got. It was a Cartier Arande. And one of my super close friend, Stuart Goldfarb. He helped me pick this out. I told him I was ready to get into the watch game.
Shout out to Stu.
Shout out to Stu. And he was like, look, this is what you need. And I was like, all right, fine, let's go. And it was a Cartier, and it was a vintage Cartier. And what was so amazing about it is that I fell in love with the watch, and I'm a addict when it comes to research. And so I was like, okay, let me understand the world of Cartier and understand the world of, the history of the brand and the why they're known for their shapes, the type of styles that they have, why vintage Cartier is a thing. And I've gone down a huge rabbit hole of like discovering and collecting amazing vintage Cartier, and I think that it's timeless. I think that if you know, and it kind of represents me in terms of just staying low key, but still having something super quality, and it's never going to go out of style. And so if anyone's ever trying to get their first piece, I mean, I know everybody wants to go AP, Patek, like, Richard Mille, like, like off the rip. But I think that I think Cartier is actually a brand that you can rock at all times, and you can rock it with, you can rock it with a sporty fit. You can rock it with a suit and tie. You can wear it and just chilling, and it's light. But it's a timeless piece, and you always will get a little respect from that.
And most of your collections like rooted in vintage, like
vintage, a lot of vintage, and a lot of like I like to know the story. I think the story behind a watch is super important, and I think when you start going down these rabbit holes, that's when you really can kind of go and figure it out a little bit more. And so, to me, if the story doesn't connect, then it's hard for me to fall in love with the piece, because you want to learn something that's like the why. It's craftsmanship, it's art, it's it's going to hopefully keep you on time.
Absolutely. Show me. I know you have another one.
Yeah. So this one means a lot to me because it's a very strange watch. I
remember you right before you were showing me this before you got it.
So this one is called it's a watch. I mean, people are just now finally getting their hand on, but I don't think that they've seen in the wild. It's called a King Midas, and it's by Rolex. It's one of my favorite pieces. And so if you look at the watch itself, like it's all gold. It's the Midas guy, the Midas touch. It's a brick. It's in the 1960s. It's one of the first productions ever made of the watch, because it's actually got normally King Midas, everything he touched with his left hand turned to gold. And if you look at it this way, if you sit it like this, it's kind of got like the Greek structure on top. So like it's kind of hard. And this is by this guy named Joe Genscher, who made the Nautilus, who made the Royal Oak. I mean, he's a legend in the game if you know watches, and he made this one as well too, which is a really, really, really fun watch. But the thing that I personally love about it is the story, and it connected with me because Rolex was just known for making one specific watch back in the day, and they had a very specific clientele and a very specific audience, and they were like, okay, well, we have the oyster, we have the Sky Dweller, we have the traditional steel sports watch, but we want to go after a different market, and we want to go after a different brand, a different group, and so with Genscher, they ended up creating the King Midas, and I'm 99% sure Genscher made this. If not, then you can edit it out. But they ended up coming out with the King Midas, and what was so cool about that is that it actually went after an entire different demographic. It went after the entertainment space. The branding was they'd never done a watch like this. It was their first time going out on a limb to do something that was completely different. And it wasn't expensive at the time, but it still was. I think it was their most expensive watch that they ever made back then. I mean, but it captured a whole different audience. I mean, I think that Elvis used to rock it, and I think they found it like he rocked it all the time. It's not waterproof. He'd wear a shower, like he just didn't care. Like he just rock it all the time. But it showed, to me, it signifies like a brand that is willing to always go after something different and going after something new. And also going after that different audience, like the entertainment audience, and creating a product that, you know, to this day now is considered like a very historic piece. And for me, they make this one too, which is like, it's called the smaller version. It's called the Cellini version. So I just brought this one just because it's the same story. But I went down this rabbit hole and I found it, and I was like, wow, like this is exactly like the game that, like this reminds me of like when I wanted to build CLF, the Cultural Leadership Fund, and I was like, I want to go after a different world. I want to do something that nobody's ever done before. I want to build something that's targeting that audience and do it my way, and but then still leave a lasting impact and do it, you know, in something that you know, really means a lot. And so that was kind of like that Rolex story. And I encourage everyone just to, like, you know, read about it, but a lot of people don't know about the Cellinis and don't know about the King Midas, but now like it's starting to become I would say like a prominent, you know, collector's piece. And you know, it's hard to see. They would have never known that, like, if it was going to work or not, but they decided just to give it a try either way. And I think that I respect that from Rolex, and I think that the story behind it really means a lot to me.
Yeah, so, man. I think, well, man, it's crazy because everything you do is like, it's very similar. Like everything you do, it ties back to how you live. Like it's like everything you really got into, you do the research, you spend a bunch of time on it. Because I remember like you telling me this.
I was like, here we go. Yeah, let's go.
Like you were in the rabbit hole. Like, I'm thinking about this one. You did your homework. You told me the story, what it meant to you, how it connected. And then I haven't really heard your process of how you dig into businesses, but I know like you spend a bunch of time meditating on it. You'll do your homework. It's got to make sense, right? Like same with your wine. So I think one, you know, it's great. It'd be great for people who don't know Chris to take the time and learn a little bit more about your story, because you're one of those people who, you do your homework. You didn't just arrive here. You didn't just get lucky. Like
I wish.
Yeah, man. So
I wish. I mean, I'm still hustling, man. I'm still hustling, but I think that it's been a good journey so far.
Yeah, and I think your legacy will be told just like that. I think it'll be, you know, the guy who's willing to put the work in, the guy who could be trusted, the guy who will grind it out, who will do his homework, who will ask the questions, who will be bold. And man, look, I'm super proud of just seeing you, knowing you at this point in your legacy, and I'm excited to see, you know, where it's at 50 years from now when you're in France.
I'll be like, it's like the end of the Batman show when like you just see him sitting having a little cappuccino outside just with the shades on. No one knows who he is, and he's like, I'm cool.
I'm cool. Chris, I love you, brother.
I love you, man.
Thanks
I
for
appreciate
coming out,
you.
man.
Congratulations on everything. I mean, you've always been a leader of the culture, a leader of just getting people's voices out. And I think it's important that you're doing this. And, you know, I got your back. And unfortunately, you stuck with me for as long as we know. So,
thanks, bro, man. I appreciate you,
sir.
bro.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Let's go.